Never reheat these 3 foods, and 3 you must reheat to avoid foodborne illness. Have you ever looked at leftovers in your fridge and wondered, is this really safe to reheat? Especially when you're over 60 and maybe a bit more careful about these things? It's a common kitchen moment, right? We all want to save food and time, but sometimes reheating certain foods incorrectly or reheating foods that probably shouldn't be can unfortunately lead to more than just a disappointing meal. It can sometimes cause stomach upset or even foodborne illness. And honestly, it's not about being a bad cook or not knowing your way around the kitchen. In today's video, I'll share which 3 common foods seniors should generally avoid reheating, and importantly, 3 types of foods you really must reheat thoroughly to keep them safe. And we'll talk about why. No need for complicated food science degrees, just some clear, simple knowledge that can make a big difference. And please, watch until the end, because I'll be sharing some essential general tips for safely handling all your leftovers, not just the ones we highlight today. If you find the information we cover helpful, please consider sharing this video with your older loved ones who could benefit from these food safety insights. And if you're new here, please take a moment to subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on our future videos with practical health advice for seniors. Okay, now let's begin. The first food to be very cautious with: cooked rice. First, let's look at some common foods that are often best enjoyed fresh, or if they become leftovers, need to be handled with particular care. This next piece of advice for seniors focuses on when reheating might not be the best choice. This one might surprise many people, as rice is such a staple. The issue with reheating cooked rice isn't usually the reheating process itself, but rather how the rice was handled before it was reheated. Cooked rice can contain spores of a bacteria called Bacillus cereus. These spores can actually survive the initial cooking process. Now, if that cooked rice is then left standing at room temperature for too long, more than an hour or 2 before being refrigerated, these spores can germinate and multiply, producing toxins. Here's the critical part. Reheating the rice will kill the Bacillus cereus bacteria, but it may not always destroy the heat-stable toxins that have already formed if the rice was stored improperly. For seniors whose immune systems might be more vulnerable, consuming these toxins can lead to unpleasant food poisoning symptoms like vomiting and diarrhea, which can be more severe in older adults. So, crucial advice for seniors here is to be extremely cautious with leftover rice, as the risk of improper prior handling makes it a tricky leftover. The safest approach is often to cook rice fresh for each meal if possible. If you absolutely must store leftover rice, it needs to be cooled very quickly, perhaps by spreading it on a shallow tray, and refrigerated within 1 hour. When reheating, ensure it's steaming hot all the way through, to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 Celsius. But given the potential risks if these steps aren't followed perfectly, many food safety advisors suggest being extremely cautious or simply avoiding reheated rice, especially if you're unsure of its storage history. If you're still watching this video, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're engaged. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. The second food to avoid reheating: cooked spinach and other nitrate-rich leafy greens. Spinach, along with other nitrate-rich leafy green vegetables like kale or celery, is incredibly healthy when eaten fresh or freshly cooked. However, reheating these vegetables after they've been cooked can sometimes pose a concern. These vegetables naturally contain compounds called nitrates. Nitrates themselves are generally harmless, but under certain conditions, such as when cooked leafy greens are stored for a period, especially if not cooled rapidly, and then reheated, nitrates can be converted by bacteria into nitrites. Nitrites are still not the main problem, but they can then further transform into nitrosamines, some of which are considered potentially carcinogenic with long-term exposure. While the actual risk from a single serving of reheated spinach might be low for a healthy individual, it's an important piece of advice For seniors who might be consuming these foods regularly, to minimize any potential long-term exposure. The conversion is more likely if the cooked grains are cooled slowly, stored for extended periods, or reheated multiple times. To be on the safe side, it's generally best to eat cooked spinach and similar leafy greens immediately after preparation. If you have leftovers, consider enjoying them cold, perhaps in a salad once chilled quickly and stored in the fridge, rather than reheating them. This minimizes the chances of those nitrate conversions. If you're still watching this video, please comment number 1 below to let me know you're engaged. And if you haven't subscribed yet, I recommend you subscribe and turn on the bell so you don't miss any videos. The third food to generally avoid reheating: cooked eggs, especially certain preparations. Eggs are a fantastic source of protein, but once they're cooked, reheating them can often lead to disappointing results and a few potential concerns. The primary issue most people notice is texture. Reheated eggs, particularly scrambled eggs or fried eggs, can become very rubbery, tough, and unappetizing. This change in texture can make them difficult to chew and less enjoyable. Beyond texture, if eggs are not stored properly after initial cooking, cooled quickly and refrigerated, there's a risk of bacterial growth, just like with many perishable foods. When reheating, especially in a microwave, it can be difficult to ensure that the egg is heated evenly and thoroughly to a safe internal temperature throughout, leading to potential cold spots where bacteria could survive. Some also raise concerns that repeatedly heating proteins and fats, as found in eggs cooked with certain oils, might lead to less desirable chemical changes. For seniors, any digestive upset from poorly textured or improperly reheated eggs is best avoided, making this sound advice for seniors. Therefore, eggs are almost always best enjoyed freshly cooked. If you do have leftover cooked eggs, like hard-boiled eggs, it's generally safest and most pleasant to eat them cold. Trying to reheat scrambled or fried eggs often just doesn't yield a good result and carries more risk than it's worth. If any of these never reheat or be very cautious with foods surprised you, or if you have a safety tip to share about leftovers, please comment number 1 to let us know in the comments below. And if you're finding this valuable, please consider subscribing to our channel and hitting that notification bell so you don't miss our future health and safety tips for seniors. Now for some essential advice for seniors. Let's turn our attention to the other side of the coin. Foods that you absolutely must reheat thoroughly before eating. For these items, reheating isn't just about taste or texture. It's a critical step for preventing foodborne illness, which can be especially dangerous. The first food category you must reheat: all leftover cooked meats and poultry. This is a big and very important category. We're talking about any leftover cooked chicken, turkey, beef, pork, lamb. Essentially any meat or poultry that was cooked, then cooled and stored. While proper cooling and refrigeration slow down bacterial growth, they don't always stop it completely. In some, harmful bacteria can still multiply at refrigerator temperatures if given enough time. Common culprits include Salmonella, Listeria, and E. coli. These bacteria thrive in the danger zone. Temperatures between 40 degrees Fahrenheit, 4 Celsius, and 140 degrees Fahrenheit, 60 Celsius. Leftovers can easily pass through this zone during cooling, and again if not reheated adequately. For seniors, contracting a foodborne illness from improperly handled meat or poultry can be very serious. Therefore, it is absolutely essential that all leftover cooked meats and poultry are reheated thoroughly to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, or 74 degrees Celsius. A key piece of advice for seniors is to always use a food thermometer inserted into the thickest part of the food. Just warming it up is not enough. It needs to get hot all the way through to kill any bacteria that may have developed. The second food category you must reheat: leftover soups, stews, and casseroles. Soups, stews, and casseroles are wonderful, often nutritious meals, and they make great leftovers. However, they also fall into the category of foods that must be reheated properly for safety. These dishes often contain a mix of perishable ingredients, like meat, poultry, dairy products, or cooked vegetables, all of which can support bacterial growth if not handled correctly. A particular concern with larger batches of these foods is that they can cool down slowly, even in the refrigerator, potentially allowing parts of the food to remain in that bacterial danger zone for too long. Therefore, when reheating leftover soups, stews, or casseroles, you need to be thorough. For liquid-based dishes, the guideline is to bring them to a rolling boil on the stovetop, or ensure they reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 Celsius. If using a microwave, stirring frequently for even heat distribution. For thicker dishes like casseroles, again, use a food thermometer to check that the center of the dish reaches that safe internal temperature. This is crucial advice for seniors to prevent illness. The third food category you must reheat: any other high-risk cooked leftovers. This is a broader category, but the principle is the same. Any cooked food that is considered high risk or highly perishable should always be reheated thoroughly. This includes many dishes containing dairy products, cooked seafood, or dishes containing cooked eggs not covered previously. Basically, if a food was cooked and intended to be eaten hot, then cooled and stored as a leftover, it falls into this must reheat properly category. The food safety guideline remains consistent. Reheat these high-risk leftovers thoroughly to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, 74 Celsius. Use your food thermometer, ensure even heating, and if you're ever in doubt about how long something has been stored, or if it was cooled properly, the safest choice is always to discard it. This piece of advice for seniors cannot be overstressed. When it comes to perishable cooked foods, thorough reheating is your best defense. Now that you know which foods must be reheated for safety, what's one key takeaway you'll remember from this section? If you're committed to safe reheating practices, maybe comment safety first below to show you're on board. And of course, if you haven't yet, please subscribe to our channel and turn on those notifications for more essential health information. Beyond knowing which specific foods to be cautious with or which ones absolutely need thorough reheating, here's some general advice for seniors on handling all leftovers that are crucial for food safety. Following these simple rules can significantly reduce your risk of foodborne illness. First, cool cooked food rapidly. Don't leave large pots of hot food on the counter for hours. To cool food quickly, divide large quantities into smaller, shallow containers. Second, refrigerate leftovers promptly, within 2 hours of cooking or 1 hour if it's a hot day. Third, as we've emphasized, always reheat leftovers thoroughly to an internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit or 74 Celsius. The only reliable way is to use a food thermometer. Fourth, try to avoid reheating the same leftovers multiple times. Each cycle increases risk. And finally, perhaps the most important rule and vital advice for seniors: when in doubt, throw it out. If you're unsure about safety, don't risk it. So, as we conclude today's discussion, it's clear that reheating leftovers isn't always a simple matter of just warming things up, particularly when considering the health and safety of seniors. Remembering this general advice for seniors can make a big difference. We've highlighted 3 types of foods that generally should not be reheated or require extreme caution: cooked rice, cooked spinach, and certain preparations of cooked eggs. More critically, we identified 3 categories of foods that absolutely must be reheated thoroughly: all leftover cooked meats and poultry, leftover soups, stews, and casseroles, and other high-risk cooked leftovers. The overarching message here is that food safety is paramount. For seniors, preventing foodborne illness is a key component of maintaining good health and well-being. We hope this further piece of advice for seniors empowers you with the knowledge to handle and reheat your leftovers safely and confidently. Applying these guidelines consistently can help ensure that your meals are not only convenient, but also safe. Thank you so much for joining us for this important discussion. If you found this video helpful, please give it a like and consider sharing it with others who might benefit. We'd also love to hear your thoughts or tips in the comments below. What are your go-to strategies for safely handling and reheating leftovers? And of course, if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and click that notification bell for more practical health and safety advice for seniors. Thanks again for watching. We wish you safe and happy eating.